In the darkness of medieval times, when electricity didn't exist, but torture was in full supply, someone had a bright idea: the heretic's fork. No, it's not for pasta or polite dinner parties. This little tool stopped you from doing one thing: moving your neck, or heaven forbid, sleeping. A metal collar with two prongs, one under your chin, one on your chest. You're now a walking toothpick of pain. Lower your head, stab, relax a bit, stab again. No electric shocks, no fire, just gravity and suffering. And for extra flair, they'd ask you questions. Not only can't you sleep, now you need to think too. Silence, stab. Wrong answer, stab. Breathing, might be allowed. Is man guilty for thinking or just for trying to nap? Back then, both were crimes. They called it the Iron Butterfly. Beautiful name, right? Except it's not for flying, unless you're flying into agony. Victims were forced to sit on a V-shaped metal seat, naked. Then their ankles were tied and weighted down, slowly pulling them downward. You don't die fast, oh no. The goal here is slowness. Gravity does all the work. No screaming guards, no dramatic music, just pressure. Every muscle in your lower body screams in Morse code, stop this. But medieval torturers didn't speak mercy. When did we decide pain needed elegance? Butterflies are free, but this one charges interest. Who looks at a pear and sings moon's mouth and crank it open until their jaw breaks? A medieval torturer, that's who. The pear of anguish, a metal device shaped like a fruit, but instead of vitamins it's packed with screws, inserted into the mouth or other places, don't ask, and then slowly turned. Click, click. Each turn expands the metal petals outward until it tears muscle, fractures bone, or makes you reconsider all your life choices. And you thought braces were painful. Is silence still golden when your jaws being unhinged like a broken piano? Sit down and relax, they said. Not here. The Judas cradle was shaped like a pyramid, sharp, unforgiving, and pointed exactly where it hurts the most. You were hoisted above it, then slowly lowered onto the tip. No sudden drop, just gravity. If you shifted your weight, more pain. If you didn't shift, still pain. It wasn't about death, it was about duration. Some lasted days, because sometimes the worst pain is the one that makes time itself torture. When comfort becomes cruelty, is the seat evil or the one who built it? Ah, the iron chair. For when regular chairs just aren't painful enough, imagine hundreds of metal spikes poking through the seat, the backrest, even the armrests, all perfectly positioned so that no matter how you sit, you're losing. They didn't just make you sit on it, oh no, they strapped you in. So even if your instincts begged you to move, you couldn't. Some versions even heated the metal red hot, because what's better than being stabbed and slow roasted? You'd think it's a medieval invention, right? Guess again. This torture was still used well into the 19th century. Apparently sadism ages like wine. What's more terrifying, the spikes beneath you or the people who thought this was justice? The rack, because apparently human joints were too well designed. This was a long wooden frame where you were tied at both ends like a human stretching band. Then crank, they turn the rollers until your limbs start dislocating. Not a quick death, not even necessarily lethal. The goal, pain. Prolonged, exquisite joint by joint reconfiguration. The only thing stretching more than your arms was the imagination of your torturers. Can you still call it a body when every bone is begging for relocation? No, not designer shoes. The Spanish boot wasn't made for walking, it was made for shattering. Metal or wooden cuffs clamped around the victim's calves. Then they inserted wedges. With every hammer strike, the wedges pressed tighter, cracking bones, splintering shins, turning legs into maracas filled with agony. This wasn't an execution, it was a lesson, the kind that ended with you never walking again or walking funny if you were lucky. In a world where silence was punished, even your bones weren't safe from interrogation. Behold, the pair of anguish, a device with such an innocent name, you'd think it's something from a Renaissance fruit market. But no, it's basically the demonic cousin of a garlic press. This was a metal pear that opened up when twisted, but not in your hand. Oh no, it was inserted into delicate places. Depending on your crime, mouth, vagina, rectum, the inquisitors had options. Once inserted, they'd slowly twist the screw and the pear's petals would bloom like the flower of dates. Muscles torn, tissues shredded, and if you're lucky, you die from shock. They say it was for confession, but honestly it feels more like someone had unresolved issues with actual fruit. What kind of society tears a fruit shape into a medieval blender? Maybe the real crime was giving people ideas. Somewhere in a dark chamber, a torturer looked at a sharp pyramid and said, "What if we made people sit on that?" Thus was born the Judas Cradle, part furniture, part geometry lesson from hell. Here's how it worked. You're hoisted in the air by ropes, naked and terrified. Then you're slowly lowered, butt first, onto a sharpened wooden pyramid. No pressure, literally, because they add weights to your legs, so gravity does the talking. This wasn't about quick death, it was slow, deliberate tearing. The kind of pain that makes you beg for a chair with splinters instead. The name, Judas Cradle. As if betrayal wasn't bad enough, now it comes with splinters in places that shouldn't have splinters. If betrayal had a shape, it'd be a triangle. And in this case, it goes where no triangle should ever go. What's worse than being buried alive? Being buried half alive, standing cramped and conscious. The coffin torture wasn't your standard pined wood rest in peace box. No, this was a vertical nightmare. Victims were shoved inside a coffin just big enough to stand barely. Couldn't sit, couldn't crouch, couldn't breathe easy. And just to spice it up, sometimes they nailed the lid shut with iron spikes. Other times they left your arms or head poking out, for fun. Or maybe so the boards could join in. People were left in these boxes for days. Sometimes until they confessed, sometimes until they just stopped. When justice starts to look like a magic trick, now you see them, now you don't. Maybe it's the system that needs burying. The wheel, not the one that wins you vacations. This one wins you fractures, and lots of them. The victim would be tied to a giant wooden wheel, limbs spread and stretched like a badly shaped starfish. Then executioners would take clubs and methodically shatter bones one by one. Sometimes they threaded the limbs through the wheel's spokes, turning the human body into a mangled spiral. Occasionally they'd leave the victim on display, a slow-motion billboard of state-sponsored pain. If justice turns into theater, who's the real audience? And what does it say about us if we keep buying tickets? This one deserves a trigger warning, a rage warning, and maybe a humanity warning. The breast ripper. Yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. 4 iron claws, cold as the moral compass of whoever invented it, clamped around a woman's chest, and you guessed it, pulled with brute force. It wasn't about information, it was about humiliation, control, and the kind of gendered violence that echoes across centuries. When cruelty becomes gender specific, it stops being punishment and starts being a worldview. And that view It's rotten. Yes, the iron chair. Because who needs a comfy recliner when you can have a medieval barbecue? At first glance, it's just a metal chair, but upon closer inspection, hundreds of tiny metal spikes cover the back, the seat, the arms, the leg rest, basically anywhere your skin might dare to touch. Victims were strapped in tightly because movement, that just makes things worse. Now here's the chef's kiss. Underneath the chair they'd light a fire, a slow toasty roast, not enough to kill you immediately, no, that would be merciful, but enough to cook you like a human kebab over hours. Screaming wasn't optional, neither was passing out, and those who passed out, they'd be revived, so the pain could continue. What kind of civilization builds a chair that punishes you for sitting? Maybe pain wasn't just the punishment, maybe it was the point. So, after all the spikes, the flames, the wheels, the screws, the missing limbs, and the extra weights, the real question isn't how people came up with this stuff. The real question is, why were they so damn proud of it? Some of these devices were literally put on public display, not as warnings but as art pieces. Sadism with a spotlight. The crowd, they clapped. The victims, just part of the aesthetic. Basically walking through a medieval torture museum isn't just about looking at old instruments of pain. You're staring straight into a mirror that shows you humanity, raw and unfiltered. No noble ideals, no heroic soundtrack, just sharp metal, soft flesh, and a long history of justifying both. So have we changed? Or did we just upgrade the tools, dim the lighting, and call it modern justice? If pain is society's way to maintain order, is comfort a crime? And if we laugh at medieval torture now, how long before someone laughs at us? If this video messed with your head just a little, share it. And don't forget to subscribe because we're nowhere near done. What's next?